Welcome to the weather forecast on VTB Tien channel. Dear friends, get ready for record cold temps. In today's video, we'll also discuss the general rainfall and storms across the country, as well as the cold front that's currently hovering over the eastern states. We'll dig deeper into the tropics. Obviously, we have a system to watch in the Atlantic, which is the main growth area between Africa and the Eastern Caribbean. Let's talk about the weather today. We have a big blast of moisture coming through Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, some moisture in Texas, New Mexico. It's raining in parts of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. We have a big trough of low pressure moving down into the northern parts of the country. We have some showers moving down into the northern parts of Minnesota, some showers in Maine, and a little bit of moisture in the western Appalachian Mountains. These are actually freeze warnings across North Dakota. We have red flag warnings across Oregon and Northern California. It's very dry. Also, there are some flood warnings across New Mexico. We're seeing a bit of a cooler area in the southwest, mainly because of some clouds and thunderstorms there. There's not really a trough of low pressure in that area. We're seeing a little bit of warmth across the northwest as well as much of the plains here. We're seeing above normal temperatures in this time frame. And we're still expecting cooler than normal conditions, especially along the east coast here. Looking at the 8 to 14 day period, we're seeing much warmer temperatures from the west coast up into the Rocky Mountains and into the plains, and even some of the Midwest. But we're still leaning toward cooler than normal conditions for the East Coast. We're expecting those areas to be below normal by the end of the month because we've seen cooler temperatures here. And we're seeing a lot of this guidance that suggests we're going to have cooler conditions, especially in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, even as most of the rest of the country is warmer. And that just leaves room for cold air to spill into the central and eastern states, where we're already below normal in most of those areas. We have a slight risk of 2/5 across the Tennessee Valley, extending into northern parts of Alabama and Mississippi, up into Kentucky, all the way to West Virginia. So marginal risk extends all the way to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, including Memphis, Little Rock, Shreveport. But if you look closer, that area has a 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any location in this green zone. Nashville, Lexington all the way to Parkersburg, Charleston, West Virginia, Huntington, the tornado risk is 2%. However, the deep south into the mid-Atlantic will see some thunderstorms. We even have a slight risk of severe weather from the mid-Atlantic into the northeast, where the winds and tornadoes are particularly possible. Hail can't be ruled out. So some late-season thunderstorms and maybe even some severe weather activity there for the mid-Atlantic and northeast tomorrow. One of the factors driving this today is there's a 15% chance of winds greater than 55 to 60 miles per hour. So the wind threat is real today, and this is really driven by a cold front. Risk of hail. In terms of what's possible in the southeast today, heavy rain will cover the Florida peninsula, thunderstorms, definitely some rain in Miami, the Florida Keys and the northern parts of the Bahamas. Rain will just be one form of storm activity. Tropical activity in general will just move around the area, and then you'll see a lot of storm activity moving through Kentucky and Tennessee, northern Mississippi, Arkansas, northern Alabama, up into Kentucky and West Virginia. As we get to Sunday, we've gotten drier along the northeastern corner of the country. This Sunday is going to feel a little bit like fall. Monday the 8th is expected to be dry, cooler, with some rain in Texas and maybe some of the states around Florida. Well, the northwest has some rain, but it's very dry. And if I keep that up, that's what we're going to be like on the 11th. We're seeing a lot of activity in the west and the northwest and the Four Corner states, but the east is still very, very dry. We're continuing to see the central states come out strong in terms of activity. But again, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, pretty much no rain through the 17th and even beyond that. We're still not seeing any rain until the 20th. So, we've got some activity in the central states and it's starting to spread into the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley and the Southeast. But overall it's still very lackluster. Looking back at the totals, some areas in the central states are actually pretty good. They see quite a few storms moving through. But it's hard to spread east and that's why we have this big gap where we see little to no rain in some of the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. Fortunately we do have a little rain here along the East Coast, but it's probably still going to be below average in many of these areas even though we do see some. And today, we're seeing a lot of model guidance that's even further south, potentially into the Gulf. We're even seeing some model guidance that's moving too far south in the southern Caribbean and breaking up. So that's exactly why you see me talking about all the possibilities. Especially in the medium to long term. Basically, anything is possible. And that's why we can't really rule it out in Central America. We can't rule it out in anybody in the Caribbean, anybody in the Gulf, anybody along the East Coast, even Bermuda. We've had a lot of hints lately that are more of a Southern Caribbean solution. Maybe an area that's not normally conducive to tropical development. And so we've actually seen some models that show this storm just meandering into this area and almost never really developing on its own. It never really explodes. We could start to see it creeping a little bit north again, which could indicate the Gulf or the Caribbean or even an extension from there, hitting somewhere along the East Coast or just offshore. And I want to talk about model guidance because according to the current GFS model, we see this system heading toward the southern or eastern Caribbean, hitting somewhere near Barbados. Well, it's underneath most of Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, although it's very close. It's this cluster of storms here. It's just hovering and mostly heading toward the Yucatan Peninsula and the southern Gulf of Mexico, but never really getting going. And last but not least, we have to talk about the Atlantic. So 50% chance over the next 2 days, so this weekend, 80% chance over the next 7 days that a new tropical depression forms in the Atlantic. This could be Tropical Storm Gabrielle by the end of this week. And all of the models right now are showing it moving more southerly than Hurricane Erin. Which means that our friends in the Leeward Islands, the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, really need to pay attention to this storm. But we're looking at the possibility of a system moving in late next week. Anywhere from Puerto Rico back to Anguilla, St. Martin South, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent of the Grenadines, especially St. Vincent, Barbados North, back to Puerto Rico. It shows this tropical disturbance moving right toward the Caribbean. Very high temperatures in parts of the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, all the way up to the Caribbean, the Bahamas back across the Gulf. So the US model says, hey, we have a hurricane. It's coming in, but the shear is going to stop and allow it to move in as a hurricane. And you see, as we move into next Wednesday, Thursday, it doesn't even show the system name moving in. It doesn't show a tropical storm. It could be a low-level tropical depression. And then it says it's going to encounter shear as it moves into the Caribbean. Just collapse and just a little bit more rain from Wednesday into next Thursday. So we're in a watch mode. And then, tracking the entire Gulf, the Southeast. Through the Bahamas and the Western Caribbean, there's going to be a lot of rain accumulation along with stronger tropical waves behind that we'll need to watch as we move forward. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, family and on social networks. Comment in the comments section below the video. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on VTB Tien 8 channel.